Hey guys, welcome back to No Casuals. We are very excited to give you a special episode recapping UFC London and previewing UFC Mexico City. Who am I here with? Up
You're
top.
you're with Luke.
And we apologize for the software issues. We had to move back to Zoom temporarily while we look for a new software, but we wanted to make sure we got this episode out for you guys. So we're just going to jump right into it. First, we're going to talk about some fights that have been in the news recently. A women's strawweight fight, or no, a women's flyweight fight. Aaron Blanchfield is squaring off against Macy Barber in the main event at the Apex. Now, this is a fight that I've called for a long time because these women do not like each other. They have very fun styles, and we should see a finish. What do you think about this fight, Luke?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think you might be more excited than me. Not too high on Erin Blanchfield, but this is the fight to make following her win. So I think it's going to be, regardless of what I think it's going to be a good fight.
Yeah, and then another fight in the women's flyweight division. Rose Namajunas moving up from strawweight, continuing her rise at flyweight, is fighting Miranda Maverick, who is fighting way up in the rankings against the former champion in Rose. However, that Atlanta card is shaping up nicely. What do you think about that, Luke?
Yeah, it's great. It's a little interesting, but I think that Rose coming off the loss to Blanchfield while Maverick has the momentum of like 4 wins, the UFC said, let's shoot her up and give her a higher ranked opponent. And I think it's going to be a fun fight. I think we're going to be pretty close.
Yeah, I have to disagree with you there, Luke. I think Rose is gonna look really good in this fight because I mean there is a difference between fighting the bottom of the ranking type women at women's flyweight in the UFC and fighting Zhang Wei Li, fighting Ioana Jędrzejczyk, fighting Jessica Andrade. There's a big skill level gap there. I think Rose will win this fight. I think she'll win it pretty handily. I think Miranda Maverick's kind of getting fed to the wolves here. As good as she has looked in her UFC tenure, I don't think it'll be enough to win against Rose. Next, our final thing. This is not in our script, but this came out this morning. Kyoji Horiguchi, the Ryzen flyweight champion and former UFC flyweight contender, has re-signed, leaving Ryzen to go back to the UFC to help flood that flyweight division with more and more talent. What do you think about that sign? Do you think it makes sense? He's coming off a pretty good win streak there in Ryzen, but obviously the UFC is a different type of game.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been following his career as much when he switched, but I think that in terms of the flyweight division, it makes perfect sense.
It's good. I was transitioning anyway. Because now we're going to do our segment next up, where I go through some of the next fights I would make if I were in control of the UFC. So first, Sean Brady, what do we do with him? Let's look at Shavkat Rakhmonov. I mean, look, I know Shavkat deserves a title shot coming off a very good win over Ian Gary, but I want to see this fight first because I think that while Buckley fights Usman and we get sort of some stuff sorted out between Bilal and Jack de la Maddalena, I want to see this fight maybe late summer to decide who the real number one contender is at 170. Do you think this fight makes sense? Do you think Shavkat should get that title shot first and have Brady wait a little bit, Luke?
Yeah, it's definitely hard because there's a little bit of a queue at welterweight right now. I think that if there's a couple options for Brady, I don't think he's gonna get like that immediate title shot that maybe he was advocating for. I think that it's either gonna be Rakhmonov or possibly even Buckley if the Usman fight doesn't go through. Both are exciting, and I think that if I were to choose one, it's definitely the Shavkat for that number one contender. Really lock it in. Who's better? Because especially because Shavkat in his last fight maybe kind of he wasn't fraud checked, but he showed a different side of him, and I feel like the UFC might want to test him one more time before they give him the likes of Bilal Muhammad or JDM.
Absolutely. And then for the loser of the main event, Leon, I've got him going against the winner of UFC 314's Jeff Neal and Carlos Prates matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely going to be exciting to see him versus a striker for a change. I think this is most exciting if Prates wins, being one of the best strikers at welterweight, and a fighting nerd, so he's big in the sport. And it would definitely give Leon like that kind of break from the wrestling style that he's been facing right now.
Exactly. And even if Jeff Neal does get the win over Prates, Neal's boxing is incredibly solid. So the kickboxer boxer match between Edwards and Neal should be a treat to watch too, even if Prates doesn't come away with the win there. Next, we have Carlos Ulberg, who I want to see fight Yuri Prochazka for the number one contender spot against Magomed Ankalaev.
Think that makes the most sense. Yeah, I think that's also a really interesting fight. With Jamal Hill and uh I'm blanking on who he's
Khalil
fighting.
Roundtree
And
Jr.
Khalil Roundtree with them two fighting, I think this makes most sense.
And look, here's the thing is that with Ulberg's performance, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about later, I don't see it as being particularly empowering for a title shot immediately, even though I don't think Pereira should get one either. Oberg underwhelmed a little bit against Blachowicz. It was not a great fight, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on Factor Fake. However, next up, Jan Blachowicz should fight the winner of UFC 314's Nikita Krylov Dominic Reyes fight.
Yeah, I think that's definitely good. Yeah.
Kevin Holland, Chidi and Joe Kulani.
Yes, I think that's good. I saw one other idea trending, and that would be to see him versus Neil Magny. Super similar fighting styles, and
Yep,
it's still like a very competitive matchup for Kevin Holland.
absolutely. Both would be very fun. I think Neil Magny might be a little bit less explosive at this point in his career, but his technical ability is a little bit higher than Chidi's. That both would be very good fights. Next, Chris Duncan should get the call out he wanted and fight Terrence
Yeah,
McKinney next.
absolutely. Yep.
Nathaniel Wood, Super Sadiq Yusuf.
Not disagreeing. Yep.
Leonard Kavanaugh, one more fight before he gets into the top 15. He should fight Cody Durden.
Yeah, I don't think he's ready for. Yeah, I think that makes sense. If he were to get a finish, maybe you would boost him up into a ranked fight.
Yeah, but it was a great fight nonetheless.
It was a great fight.
And then we'll talk about this fight a little bit later. Now, our next segment, if I can pull up my notes here, wherever they are, my notes are missing. Okay, I found my notes. Don't worry. Um, Next up, we have Fact or Fake, one of our signature segments here on No Casuals, where I give Luke a prompt and he decides whether it's fact or fake. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. Either way, we hope to be entertaining. First up on Fact or Fake, Sean Brady is a better contender at welterweight, aka has a higher probability of beating the winner of Bilal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena than Shavkat Rakhmonov, the number two contender.
Yeah, so I'm gonna lean towards fact, but since we both agree that like this matchup between Shavkat and Brady is so important, I think it's kind of dependent upon that. I think Sean's most recent performance over someone who is such a dominant champ at welterweight kind of looks a little bit more impressive because Shavkat faced Ian Gary, who is maybe stylistically more challenging than Leon, who is like strictly a striker, but what the fans are seeing and what the UFC staff is seeing is a dominant win at welterweight versus a win that kind of showed a different side of Shavkat, even a couple vulnerable moments. So I'm undecided. I think I would lean towards fact.
And look, I agree. I appreciate your hesitancy here because I feel a similar way. I would say I would edge towards Shavkat. I mean, he has that undefeated record. He's finished so many opponents. Stylistically, he matches up better against both Bilal and Jack than Sean really does. Sean has been knocked out by Bilal Muhammad, the champion. So I would be a little more hesitant than you. I would lean towards Shavkat, but I understand where that confliction comes in because Sean looked so good on Saturday night. Let's talk about Kevin Holland, who is in the featured bout. Should he, did he show that he can beat elite level fighters at UFC London, or do you still have hesitancy on whether or not he is truly a divisional mainstay as the fans have come to recognize him?
I think it's a fact. I think that he's already shown this, but he just proved that he's still that guy who can beat elite fighters. Gunnar Nelson, for this fight, trained with American Top Team and took extensive measures to try and figure out Kevin Holland's style that's kind of unpredictable. And I think that yeah, he's still that guy. Is he going to be threatening for the title? Probably not. But is he going to be someone who their UFC can rely on to in some of those lower ranked fights to deliver an entertaining, maybe main card opener, 100%.
Look, I completely agree. I feel like with Kevin Holland for fans, and as someone who's a huge fan of what he does and who he is, and has met him a few times, and he's a really good dude. It's difficult. It's difficult because he'll get a big opportunity against a guy like Roman Dolidze and get injured, or he'll have a big opportunity against Wonderboy Thompson and fight with low IQ moves just to entertain more fans. Whereas a lot of people really do just want to see him win more than one fight in a row. But I mean, Gunnar Nelson was a very good opponent, someone who I had beating Kevin Holland, and Kevin Holland looked incredible against him. So I'm very happy to say that I'm a little bit back on the train. I'm excited to see who he fights next, and I'm excited to see him continue to stay in the UFC. Next factor, fake. Jan Blachowicz. Is retirement the next option for him? Is that a fact or is that fake?
I mean, I'm gonna say fake. I don't know like what stuff is going on in his career, how his health is, but he lost to a very close decision that I mean I could see an argument that he was winning. After the fight, I actually thought that the judges were gonna give it to him. And he can sta still hang with these top light heavyweights. So unless he has serious injuries, like I would still like to see him fight.
I disagree. I think that's fake. I mean, he's 42 years of age. He's a former champion. He's a Hall of Famer. I don't think he needs to prove anything else. I don't think he needs to win the title again. I don't think that's really in the cards for him anymore. I don't see a point in him fighting anymore if he's not fighting for titles or title opportunities. And I think that he has to win at least two fights against probably a guy like Yuri Prochazka and a guy like whoever wins between Hill and Roundtree at least. If he's not fighting down in the rankings, which he probably is. I don't see it. I don't see a path to championship for him anymore, to be honest. So I would like to see him retire and retire the Hall of Famer that he is.
Yeah,
All right. This is a little provocative, Luke.
go
Leon
for it.
Edwards was never really that good.
So this is it's interesting. I want to say fact, but the fact that he beat Usman twice kind of hangs over my head a little bit. I think that I actually I very much believe that if the fight with Khamzat Chimaev would have gone through, I think he would have been a the trajectory of his career would have been completely different. I think that this like the period, this like drought, fraud check, whatever he's going through, would have happened much earlier. And I think that people would have seen the side of him that when someone with a definite wrestling background comes and faces him, he really just cannot compete. And even in instances in this fight, like I know we were probably both surprised, as were many people. Like he seemed to give up. He just seemed to give up. He started shooting a take. He shot a takedown on Sean Brady, a very lame, lazy attempt that Sean easily countered and then ultimately choked him out later in that round. It's just. Yeah, I want to say fact.
Look, I feel similarly. I feel like it's a hard thing to grapple because he's a champion, defending multiple times, one of the greatest welterweights of all time. But when you think about the people he was fighting, first fight with Usman, he lost 3 out of 4 rounds before getting a knockout, which was the greatest moment in history of sport, in my opinion, and will last much longer than Leon Edwards' legacy ever will. That's the first one. Second one is a very close fight with Usman, a fight that I had Usman winning. This is an older Usman. Third is Colby Covington. We know what Colby Covington is. We just know what he is now. And those are his defenses. Those are not the best defenses.
Absolutely
And
not.
then he got dominated by Bilal and dominated by Sean, right? Who subbed him in the fourth round, and he had to shoot a takedown out on the third. I mean, I just don't. I'm almost agreeing with you here that facts,
Yeah.
shockingly enough.
And I think you can't really attribute wins to luck because it's a UFC sport. Like it's the ultimate fighting. Anything can happen. But when you're down, like some people had him down 4 rounds, 3 rounds, whatever in that first Usman fight, and then you have like ultimately your only highlight. I mean, I fully believe that when I see highlights of this guy, I see one highlight. I see the Usman highlight, which is a phenomenal. It deserves to be shown in that light. But people seem to have taken that and it has just blinded them from the fighter that he is now and the people that he's versing now.
I look, you took the words right out of my mouth. I have nothing to say. Let's move right on to Loner Kavanaugh. Do you think he's the best unranked flyweight in the world?
Um, I'm either leaning towards him, but I think Joshua Van too.
Joshua Van is ranked. Joshua
Uh,
Van's ranked 15th,
Are you sure?
14th. He's ranked
14th.
14th.
There, so he's
Cash.
the. I'm gonna say he's the best.
I completely disagree. I completely
Okay.
disagree. I think
All
there's
right. Let's
three
hear
names that
it.
come to mind. I think Andre Lima is a better prospect. I
Okay.
think Rafael Estevam is a better prospect. And I think Muhammad Makayev is a much better prospect than any of those three. I
I
think
can see.
I think
Yeah.
Makayev would be a champion in the UFC right now if he didn't get blacklisted,
I can see Mokaev.
right? But even Esteban was a win over Charles Johnson. He's undefeated as a professional. Andre Lima is coming off a finish. Leonard Kavanaugh's great, and I'm a big believer in him. Do I think he's the best unranked flyweight? No. There's too many talented guys just hanging outside the ranks. I don't think so. Right? Not right now. But he's also so young. He's so
Yeah,
young.
he's so young. Yeah.
How old is he? 23? He's really young.
Live check. He is 25.
Oh, I was close though. But that's still insanely young. That's
Very
ridiculous.
young.
By the way.
Very young. Especially compared to these other prospects
Yeah.
that you were talking about.
Yeah, they're all older.
Yep.
Let's move on to Carlos Ulberg when he fought Jan Blachowicz. Is he the best striker at light heavyweight at
No,
present? No,
absolutely not.
fake.
No. Do you agree with me?
I do, but I think it's a
Yeah.
conversation. I think there's a
I
conversation
think
to be had. I
I,
think
I
that
don't think it is. I think that Pereira, even Roundtree are better strikers than him.
well, Pereira got outstruck by Magomed Ankalaev.
But I think that if you're judging someone on one fight, I think that's kind of silly. I think that Pereira
Pereira got
ultimately,
outstruck by Israel Adesanya.
I think Pereira is ultimately proven to be a better striker than Carlos Ulberg.
Like,
If I,
I'm not saying I disagree with you outright. In fact, I do agree with you. I'm just playing a little devil's advocate here. I think there's a conversation we had that he is one of the best strikers at light heavyweight. I mean, Zhang Mingyang is up there. I think that Khalil Rountree Jr. is up there. I think that Yuri Prochazka in a weird way is up there. But
yep,
I don't know. Carlos Ulberg's in that conversation now. He has a win over Ozdemir, who is another one of the best strikers in the division, and Blachowicz, who is
yep,
known for his power.
he's up
I
there.
think
I just
I
don't think
think
he's
it's
that number
I
one
don't think
spot.
he's number one. I agree. I agree. Okay, let's move on to this Saturday's fights. We're gonna have to run through them real quick, so we don't have a ton of time. But we're going to do very quickly, couple factor fake. We'll talk about our prospects of the night, get into the card, and then get out of here. First up, the winner between Saturday's main event of Brandon Moreno and Steve Erceg, should they get the next title shot against Alexandre Pantoja after he fights Kai Kara France?
Yeah, so after Kai France, it's really hard at flyweight, but I think that after Kai France, there's not a lot of routes the UFC can go. An Usyk rematch would kind of I don't know if he ultimately would deserve it against Pantoja or Kai France, the winner of that. I don't know. It's not booked yet, but I think that that has to be the fight to make. I would be much more interested in seeing a Brandon Moreno rematch. I guess I'm gonna go with fact.
Yeah, I guess, right? Because Cop should probably be fighting Royval. And then Kai Kara France should probably be fighting Pantoja. So who else is there? There's Albazi and Tyra in the top five and in the top
Yeah,
six, but
I
beyond that,
think
you
there's
don't
a
have much.
I agree, and I think there's a couple of guys who are maybe one or two fights away.
Yep.
But yeah, the outcome of this is just I
Yeah.
think they would have
Big,
to do it.
big guys like Van and Johnson and Lima that are just as other rankings, two or three fights out, right? Tyra is probably two fights away, but no, I agree. I think that I think this is a fact. And then Joe Pyfer's over minus 500 last time I checked against a former title contender in Kelvin Gastelum. Is he too big of a favorite? Is that fact or is that fake?
I was a little bit surprised when I saw him as big of a favorite as he is, but I'm gonna go with fake. I think that you have to remember that while Pfeiffer and Brady have different styles, Sean Brady I'm talking about, they trained together, and Sean Brady made very quick work of Kevin Gastelum. He hasn't figured out ultimately, in my opinion. Kelvin has been in the sport for a while, but I just think that Pfeiffer has the power and is just an athletic specimen now compared to Gastelum. And Gastelum, he's out of shape. In my opinion, he's out of shape. I think that Sean I think that Joe Pyfer is an athletic freak almost. And the power he holds is scary. So I think that he's going to prove on Saturday that he is not too big of a favorite.
I think this is completely fake. I think it's complete fact. Sorry. I think he's way too big of a favorite. Now look, I have Joe Pyfer winning this fight. We can skip over this in the little post fight talk because I have Joe Pyfer winning this fight. I think he wins. I think he wins the decision. I think he hurts Gosling a couple times, has rocks him, doesn't get the finish. Whatever. However, Joe Pyfer 1 year ago lost to Jack Hermanson. Now look, Jack Hermanson's a very underrated guy at middleweight. He is. But Gaslam's, in my opinion, a better fighter than Jack Hermanson. Maybe not right now, but he has a better resume. And he can't hang. He's got a brick chin. He's almost beat guys like Whitaker. Do I think Piper's gonna win? Yes. Do I think it's the best win of Piper's career? Also, yes. Do I think Piper will probably be ranked after he wins? Probably. Do I think that he should be minus 550? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I think maybe minus 300, minus 250. I'm like, all right, cool. I can see that. But minus 550, that would be like if Pantoja fought Moreno again after beating him every single time right now. Like, there's no way. I'm sorry. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. Moving on, prospect of the night. Luke, you can go ahead first. Tell us a little bit about your prospect of the night. Tell us why you chose him. What's the story? What's his story?
All right, so I'll give you a quick rundown of Gautier. He's fighting out of Cameroon. He has a five-fight win streak. All of them are coming by knockout. He's 22 years old, um, and he's pretty incredible power. He's a middleweight, and he's fighting Jose Medina, who is coming off a loss. So I think the UFC, he's coming off a loss to Zachary Reese. So I think the UFC is kind of setting him up for a pretty big moment here. I think they're going to try and get him to shine like a prospect that they want to set up in the future of middleweight. So keep an eye out for Atiba Gatir this weekend on Saturday.
And my pick for prospect of the night, Ronaldo, Lazy Boy, Rodriguez, already a big star, but not ranked yet at flyweight, even though, again, another guy who's in that unranked conversation, best unranked guys, coming off a really good win over Ode Osborne at Noche UFC. He's super exciting. He's already a star, and he's going to strap a rocket to him. I mean, if he gets ranked to the top five at flyweight, he'll be one of the biggest stars in the sport. And he doesn't even need to be the champion. He's entertaining on the mic. He's entertaining in the cage. This guy, I'm really hot on. I really believe that this guy's going to be a star. I don't know how good he is yet. I think this Saturday's going to be a good litmus test against Kevin Borjas. However, we're going to move right on to our main event. Brandon Moreno is fighting Steve Erceg, as we talked about before. Who do you got in this one, and how do you got them, Luke?
Yeah, I mean this is not too hard for me to predict. I don't think there's many ways this fight could go, unless something like surprises me. I think that this is gonna go the distance. I don't think Steve Erceg has finishing ability. I don't know. I think that if there were to be a finish, it would be Brandon Moreno, via maybe like a ground and pound TKO. Um, and my ultimate prediction, I'm gonna go with Brandon Moreno by a decision. I just think he's too scrappy. I think that Steve Erceg. I don't know why he's fighting Brandon Moreno. I honestly don't. But I think that it's going to be a good fight. I think that if Steve Erceg were to win, also it would be by a decision. Maybe he would show some of the heart that he did against Pantoja, and some of the striking that he did. I just think Brandon Moreno's too scrappy. He's going to get it done. Um, Probably, I don't, not going to be a split. Unanimous decision.
I think that you're underestimating Erceg a little bit here. I think Erceg has fight ending capability against anybody in the division. I mean, he has some of the best power in the division, and he's a good grappler too. He is a good grappler. I mean, his fight against David Dvorak, a guy who I was really hot on at one point, where he just dominated him in his UFC debut, a top 15 level opponent immediately, and shot up the ranks. I mean, I'm pretty hot on Usyk. However, should he be fighting Moreno at this point in his career? Absolutely not. I mean, no, not at all. He hasn't deserved this fight. He's coming off a first round knockout loss to a guy ranked below Moreno. It makes no sense. And I think Moreno's going to win here too. I think he's going to finish Usyk on the ground. I think Usyk might hurt him a couple times on the feet. Moreno's probably going to get a knockdown, and then from there, he'll lock in some type of finish on the ground. But yeah, I think both of you guys have fighting power. I don't see this fight going the distance. I don't. I see a finish coming from either side, but I would lean towards Moreno. I think the odds are pretty close right now, and I think they should be that way because I think this is a very good fight.
Are we doing TED Talks or no?
No, no TED Talks this
No
week.
TED Talks.
Teddy fell asleep at the wheel. What a,
Brutal.
we'll see him next week. We'll see him at UFC 314. We're going to do a big special event for that. But now we're going to go to Under the Radar. We're talking about some earlier fights on the card, some prelims, some stuff that you might not know about. First up, our co-main event, Manuel Torres is fighting Drew Dober in a basically even fight in Vegas.
Yeah. No. And I agree with some of these odds.
I agree
Um,
too. How do you predict this fight?
it's so tough, right? I mean, these guys are very similar, I think, stylistically, and I think that this might be a prediction that you completely disagree with. But Manuel Torres, I think that he's gonna knock out Drew Dober, and I'm gonna see it in one of the earlier rounds. I think he's gonna absolutely put Drew Dober, who's more of a veteran of the sport, to work and gas him out, and he's gonna ultimately land the shot that ends it.
I'm in disbelief. I'm in disbelief because look, I think Manuel Torres wins this fight too. But you're saying someone's gonna knock out Drew Dober?
Yeah, I
When
am.
is the last time somebody knocked out Drew Dober?
It's been a while, but listen, I've had hot
John
takes on the
Silva.
show.
Wait,
I've
no,
had
wait,
I've
no,
had
no,
hotter takes.
no. Wait, John Silva could not knock out Drew Dober. John Silva TKO Drew Dober with a doctor stop. Manuel Torres. No, no, no. Manuel Torres, the guy who got knocked out and dominated by Ignacio Bahamondes, is not knocking out Drew Dober. I think he beats him. I think he does. I think he might hurt him once or twice, but he's not knocking him. He's not.
Listen, I love your certainty because when I'm right, listen, if you're listening, folks, if you're listening to this and the recording is still up, I'm genuinely surprised because I know I will be right. And I know that last time I had a prediction like this, the recording got lost. It got lost. when Nasruddin Imavov knocked out
That
Azamat. I
was
was
not
clowned. I
my
was
fault.
publicly shamed by some of my co-hosts, and it was an embarrassing moment. When I admitted it, when I said what my prediction was, it was embarrassing. But there is no better feeling than getting this right, and I have full confidence that Manuel Torres will knock out Drew Dober.
In the first round.
No, I'm going first or second. I don't know. I think probably one of the earlier
I've
ones.
never agreed with someone and disagreed with them more because I have the same guy winning, but I have a completely different no way.
All
No way.
right, all right.
All right. We've talked about this fight. We both agree Piper wins it. We both agree in somewhat solid fashion, but minus 550 is insane. I'm sorry. If
It
you
is great. I would never put anything on, nothing on
not on
Piper.
Piper, not minus five. I wouldn't put 550 on anybody.
Yeah.
Maybe Islam if he's fighting someone not in Ilia Topuria, but anyway. How was this junior? A guy who we haven't talked about at all somehow in this episode. El Nino Problema, 20 years old, minus 310 against a veteran in Vince Morales. I think this fight's pretty easy to predict. I think it's going to be a homecoming show for Rosas. Do you want to be a devil's advocate here, or do you see it the
Nope.
same way?
Complete agreement with you. I think that it goes further than this too. I think the UFC wants him to get on that mic. They want the Chi reaction from the entire home crowd. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't think Vince Morales has any of the skills to beat Raul Rosas Jr.
And look, I was arguing with myself about putting Rosas Jr. as my prospect of the night. I do think Rodriguez is a better prospect for his weight class. The loss to Christian Rodriguez, who also fights on this card, really troubles me as a fan of Rosas Jr. But man, if he does get that win, that Chihuahuas in Mexico City is gonna be so fun. I mean, it's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, Ronaldo Rodriguez, Kevin Borjas. I obviously have Rodriguez in this one. I think Borjas is a very good prospect. I think Rodriguez is just better. Do you see this fight differently, or do you think Rodriguez gets it done too?
No, I'm listening to all the hype that the high praises you've been singing about Rodriguez. So I'm gonna go with him.
Next, Edgar Chairez, in my opinion, one of the most entertaining flyweights in the world, fighting the always durable CJ Vergara. I'm going to let you start with your take on this one. This is a great fight. This could be the fight of the night. It really could.
It has potential. You got the classic veteran match. Is the veteran gonna test the younger guy? And I think that in this case, I think that Edgar Chairez is gonna win. I think that the odds honestly make sense on this. He's around minus 250. I think that he's gonna get it done. I can't. I was thinking about if I should say this fight is gonna go distance or not. I think ultimately I'm gonna lead toward not. I think there's gonna be a stoppage. I think there's probably gonna be a knockout.
I don't think so. I think Vergara, I mean, we've seen him get hurt so badly so many times and recover and win fights. I think Chairez is too good to do that. I think Chairez will win here, but I don't see him finishing CJ Vergara. I see him hurting him a couple times, getting a decision, like how I see a lot of the fights on this card, but not doing enough to find that knockout shot.
Yeah.
Finally, Christian Rodriguez, most underrated featherweight in the world, in my second most underrated featherweight in the world, in my opinion, behind Steve Garcia, is fighting Melquizael Costa. Very close fight, but Costa's another prospect that Rodriguez is looking to take away his winning streak and take away some of the hype off him. Who do you have in this one? How do you have him winning it?
I got Rodriguez probably by decision. Um, he's got a lot of momentum. I think that Costa's a little bit more seasoned than him, so he's going to provide us some of the harder, probably going to be a hard one of the harder matches for Rodriguez. So I've got him winning it probably by decision, but curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, look, I mean, you have a guy in Costa who's a known fight finisher. I mean, he looked so good at UFC Seattle against Andre Fili and just routed him, made him look like nobody's business. But at the same time, we have Rodriguez who's beaten Rosas Jr. He's beaten three undefeated prospects in the UFC alone, which is ridiculous. I've got Christian Rodriguez winning this also by decision. I completely agree with you, Luke. I think we see this the exact same way. As great as Costa is, as great as his story is, as much as I want to see him win, I think Rodriguez is just too tested against high level guys to lose this fight. And with that, guys, that's all we have for you today. We apologize for the technical difficulties and whatever, and this is coming out Saturday morning, so we know it's going to be a little bit of a thing. But thank you for joining us. I hope that we revel when Luke is wrong about Drew Dober getting knocked out. But we'll see, man. That's one of the more heated moments we've had on this program. So we'll see. With that, though, I will let you guys go. I'll see you guys next week. We'll be talking about Lerone Murphy and Josh Emmett next week, as well as recapping the Saturday's card, which you should tune into. It's a great card. Do you have any last words, Luke?
Just everyone tune in this Saturday. We got also a bunch of awesome fights coming up. I mean, 3 straight weeks of great fights.
And UFC 314, I think we might be doing an in-person episode, Luke.
I think that's what's gonna happen.
Hoo-hoo-hoo! If you're not excited for that, you better be. All right. This is Aiden Boyer signing off.
See you guys.
See you guys.